Good afternoon, everybody. It's just past noon here, so we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to come learn about some of the security things that are happening in the world and some of the best practices that Executech has learned through our clients, and kind of wanted to share those with you in the banking industry here in Utah. I wanted to start off by just giving a brief idea of who Executech is. We were founded in 1999 here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have three main pillars of our services: IT support, which is your servers, firewalls, Wi-Fi's, devices, computers; cloud services. A lot of people are taking the servers and moving them into the cloud, so we manage those and build those out. And then we have our networking division, and then we also have our security division, which of course we're going to talk about here today. I also wanted to give a brief indication of kind of who we are from a size perspective. As you can see, Executech on the left-hand side of the map here of the United States. As I mentioned, we started here in Salt Lake City, Utah, but we have grown over the years to have all the locations that you see there with the little flags. And then we also have two sister companies back east that help us if anything is needed on the East Coast level as well. A brief agenda, what we're going to talk about: the latest threats, kind of what we're seeing, where they're coming from, where they're originating from, some prevention techniques and products, how to prioritize, and how to plan and how to respond. Again, best tips and tricks, and happy to share this slide deck with everybody once it's over. The final slide has my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me, and we can ask the Utah Bankers Association to send this out as well so people can have it. But we'll just go ahead and dive in. The first slide I have here, I wanted just to go over kind of where the threats are coming from. This is typically a live feed. This is a screenshot, so you don't see the lines and the dots kind of moving, but this is from one of our premier partners, SonicWall. They provide firewalls for a lot of businesses across the world, along with Sophos. But with SonicWall, what they do is they actually have this live feed, so you can actually see where the threats are coming from, where the target's at, what types are they, and what are the top IP addresses. So as you can see, it might be surprising to some on the call that the United States is the top location for the origin of attacks. And we are the largest when it comes to where the attacks are actually happening from. And it might come as no surprise, but a lot of people in the United States are targeting those of us that are in the United States. So that's why that number kind of seems that way to us. But just a good idea to get an idea of a perspective on the world and kind of where we sit in the United States and why is it so important for all businesses, and especially those in the banking industry, to make sure they take the protection of their information very, very seriously. So the biggest risk to organizations and just business in general, as you can see here from 2021, the Verizon data breach investigation report. They are the leading industry kind of standard when it comes to reports. As you can see, hacking by far is the number one, followed by social, number two, errors, three, and malware, number four. And then other ones that kind of come into play as well. But those are the top four ways that the bad guys, the nefarious actors, as I like to call them, are trying to get into the networks of businesses and individual computers as well. And as a business, you know, we're no different than you guys and girls in the banks. We are a very large MSP with roughly 1,000 different clients. So we have a target on ours. So we go through very rigorous security practices to make sure that we're safe. But what happens, and this is very interesting, a new one that kind of happened to us, is a bad actor acted like we were Executech when people were soliciting for a new job. As you can see here and kind of read through the interview invitation with Executech, and they acted like us. And there is no one at Executech with the name on this document, but they acted like they were our HR department. So they reached out to people. They actually talked to people on the phone. They actually were having email communication with people. We didn't know this was going on until someone picked up the phone and called us and asked for this person. And of course, that person doesn't work here. So that alerted us to what was going on. But it just goes to show you that the people who are doing illegal and bad things, they are smart, and they're coming up with very creative ways to get the information of not only your employees, but to you as an individual, as a society as a whole. They're coming up with some very creative ways to do it. On an individual basis, credit card theft has emerged as the #1 threat out there, as you can see through some of those statistics. Over 440,000 reports of credit card theft in 2022. And as you can see, kind of the fifth bullet point, over $400 million worldwide is going to occur with credit card theft and information in the next 10 years. And of course, the bad people, once they get your credit card, they get your information, they can get credit cards, then they change the shipping address and they start buying things and having it shipped to their address. And how are they getting the information from? Well, the picture on the right is from a hotel that I was actually staying at. As you can see, the paragraph reads, "Do you want to allow your PC to be discovered by other PCs and devices on this network?" So as I went to connect to the Wi-Fi at the hotel, and this is a very common thing no matter where you go, this little window pops up on your Wi-Fi device asking if it wants to be discovered. As we always tell people, the answer is no, and it is always no. There's no reason to have this to be a yes. If you answer yes, that will allow people to kind of swim into your device and start watching what you're doing. They can mirror your screen on their screen. So as you're entering credit card information or buying something as you're sitting at a coffee shop or somewhere, they can just have that information to be able to buy things on your behalf and have it shipped to them or shipped somewhere else. So again, the answer is always no when it comes to the discoverable on a network. So ransomware is very, very popular. It's a conversation that a lot of people know. They know the name. There's no secret of ransomware is to this day and age, but it occurs. And you'd think that people are smart enough not to do it, but with fear and speed and time, people are concerned about doing things quickly. So sometimes they miss things. So I'm going to go through a couple examples of kind of what we're seeing here. The first thing that you see here is an example of an email that has come through. There's been different versions of this through the decade or plus 10 years that this has come out, but this is just your very typical email. Hey, I've been entrusted to disperse $982 million of dollars to beneficiaries, and I need the following pieces of information to get your piece of the pie sent to you. Obviously not true, obviously not, but those of us know that have been dealing with this for a while, but there's people out there who might fall for something like this, and so it actually works at times. Then they got a little bit smarter and they realized, hey, why don't we use things that people are actually using in their house, in their lives, to try to get their information into different systems. And so here's one from Netflix. The logo is correct. It looks correct. Oh, attempted to authorize my card, but it is expired. You need to update the card is what it's reading. So, click here and give us the latest information so we can bill you properly for Netflix. Again, they're working on speed. They're hoping that you just read this, you look at it. The person says, oh yeah, well, that's entirely possible that my credit card has been expired and I haven't updated it. So I'll just go ahead and click here and update it. And of course, the ransomware starts and then you have a problem. A couple other examples here. These are personal ones that was sent to me through the years. I was working on a project for Julie Black. I got her permission to use this in presentations. It's a business that's got 5 locations in Utah. And I was working with her on a project, sending different emails back and forth. And then all of a sudden, I get this email saying that she sent me an attachment. I thought it was a little bit odd. It struck me as being not accurate because I had no reason to believe that she was going to send me an attachment. So I called her on the phone, spoke to her live, and in fact, they knew that they were being spoofed. They knew there was a problem, and I just happened to get the latest email on it. And there's a lot of examples in the public sector. If you just Google the news, you can find ways and stories of how businesses and very, very large sums of money are being transferred to wrong bank accounts and those type situations. And I'll get to some examples of how to keep that or to minimize the opportunities of that happening. And then the one on the right, apparently they were on my LinkedIn and they were kind of searching for me there, and then saw that I did some territory management work in my past. And so they sent me the email asking if I wanted to confirm about a new job as a lead territory manager. So click on the link there that says LinkedIn, and then I'll go ahead and give them the information. But you can see LinkedIn isn't spelt right. It's not, doesn't look right. And so obviously I thought better of it, and I didn't click on that link. Again, they're getting a little more sophisticated. They're realizing that people are using Microsoft products in their business, in the world, and in the banking industry, I'm sure you are as well. So this one says, the Office 365 logo is right. It's saying to certify that you're the owner of this account. And to the second in red is kind of critical. You need to certify your account to avoid third-party access. They're kind of living on fear. They're hoping one of the employees at the bank sees this, at the business sees this, realize, oh, I don't want anybody to have access to my information. So, I better do this right away. Speed, time, clicks on the button, and then, of course, ransomware. They also realize that businesses around the world and in the United States are using SharePoint to hide data, or not hide data, but they're using it as a file server to have information, whether it's new hire information, whether it's information on the business and kind of that the intellectual property that the business has. So again, they're using the right logos, the right names, the right everything. So it looks the same. It's just not exactly what it needs to be. A couple other examples. The one on top is from OneDrive. I use this one just to show that email address. And if you notice, it's not OneDrive. It's not accurate on the actual address there. I said email, but the website address is not accurate for the OneDrive. So make sure you're paying attention, and in your training for your employees, they have the right, and they're looking for the right information on that website. And then the last one is OneNote. This is kind of a personal thing for me. I use OneNote all the time for my prospective clients, current clients, things that I'm working on, even internal meetings that I have. I keep all my notes in OneNote, so it's accessible on my phone, mobile device, my computer, and of course it's backed up and it's in the cloud, so I don't have to worry about losing a notebook because it's all done electronically. So they're using this one just to see. And as you can tell, or as you read it, it says the DHL shipping documents, are here. Well, if it was to come to me, I know I didn't ship anything with DHL, so I know this is fictitious. I know better than to actually click on that link, because that would start ransomware and cause some problems. Since we're in the banking industry and everyone on the call is in the banking industry, I thought I would share an example of what happened to a bank in Maine. As you can read in the highlighted as kind of the more important pieces, is the experienced a cyber incident when they learned of a vulnerability located in their software. So they did everything right. They did, they had everything locked down. Their IT department, their managed service provider did everything right. But this Go Anywhere site that their software system uses was infected. And so they became infected. And as you can see from the second highlighted, over 139 residents were affected. And then, of course, as you can read down, it's a 0-day vulnerability. And with the amount of compliance that banks are in, the industry you're in, the sensitive information, the volatility of the dollar figures that you're transferring back and forth, this is a situation where you don't want to occur to your business. So we're going to talk about some of the prevention and kind of what we see as best practices when it comes to running your business and running the bank and making sure everybody's safe from a security perspective. The first one, reading left to right, top to bottom, is antivirus. This has been around for years and years and years. There's no secret what antivirus does, but some of the latest and greatest antivirus is a learning system. So they learn the different systems and the different antiviruses that are coming in. And it's kind of proactive instead of a reactive situation. So I would advise you to investigate what antivirus you're using and maybe upgrade to a more advanced antivirus. The next one that sits on top of antivirus, so you're going to have antivirus and then you're going to layer anti-ransomware. What anti-ransomware does is kind of in layman's terms, or kind of elementary school, it notices when code is being written on a device without the keys being struck or writing the code using fingers. And so it realizes that's abnormal behavior. That shouldn't be happening. And so it isolates the machine. It isolates the file that is being corrupted, and it will actually revert back to the clean version of that file. And then, of course, alert your IT department, your IT manager, security manager, your managed service provider, who's ever on this list, to be alerted when such events occur. So I call this sleep well at night software. It's not a lot of money. It's usually about $2.50, maybe $3, per device. But you'll sleep better at night knowing that the ransomware is going to be blocked should it actually start occurring. The next one is web filtering. You can do a lot of different web filtering from a lot of different places. You can do it from the firewall. You can actually blacklist certain areas of the world geographically. You can blacklist names. Gambling is a very common one that is blocked at our clients' locations. So you can block certain things from coming in across the world or a certain geographical area. So for instance, if you're not doing any business in North Africa or South America, you can block those areas. And so you won't get any traffic coming into your business using web filtering. And the other one that I'll mention on here is you can actually put a banner on your emails. What happens is the system can know whether or not an email is originating from inside your organization, or is it spoofing somebody from in your organizations. You can Google, there's all kinds of stories I can get into of different clients where maybe it comes from a CFO or a CEO asking for, the most common one these days is gift cards. Please go get me $1,000 worth of gift cards and send me the information off of the gift cards right now for a prospective client we're working on. That scenario comes in via text messages or emails. Well, if it comes through an email, your IT provider or your IT manager can put a banner on your emails to detect when an email is coming from outside of your IT environment. And it puts this banner on top and basically just gives your employees a sense of warning. It gives them a stop, a pause. Wait a minute, something doesn't look right, doesn't smell right. Did this actually come from the CFO? And then, of course, call to verify if you want to double check, but don't do anything that will cause problems to the business. The next one is multi-factor authentication. This tends to raise some eyebrows with people because people don't like change that much, but this will cause people to have to, as it reads, multi-factor or double authenticate who you say you are. You enter your login and passwords, and a lot of you banks already have this as well to get in to your systems. But we tell people to turn it on for as many things as you possibly can. Have multi-factor authentication. It's just going to send a code to a secondary device, and you have to enter that code in, and then it double checks to make sure you say who you are, and then off onto that site you actually go to. The middle one, I just use that as an example just to give you a visual of how close websites can be. As you can see in the first example, actually both of them, if you look at the A on the website itself, you'll see that the A is different on the bottom versus the top. So what they do is they'll create a second website that looks just like it, same logos, same layout, same everything. The person goes in to enter their login information, And then it says, oh, it's time to change your password. And so then they go in and you have to put your old password in, then you do your new password. Well, it's fictitious, but what do they have now? They now have your login and your real password to your bank account. So we tell people all the time, make sure you verify that the address is current and it's right and nothing looks kind of funny or out of place. And then the last one on the right is password manager. We use LastPass as our preferred, but there's quite a few out there. What this does is it allows your employees to store their passwords in one location. And so they don't have to try to memorize them. It makes it easier for them. It's a lot safer. And the other thing when it comes to passwords, we highly recommend using phrases instead of your traditional, capital letter, lowercase, with numbers and a special character, the typical things that we see. And I've been guilty of this in the past before I knew about this security features, is I was using the same password with a number at the end. And then when it came time to make the change, I just rolled it over. So the 1 became a 2, the 2 became a 3, and so forth, until I realized that that's not great practices. So now I use phrases. My favorite vacation spot is the beach. That's harder for hackers to try to get into the system when you use something like that. Just realized that I put 2 icons and 2 pictures for multi-factor authentication. That's how important it is. But we'll move on to mobile device management. This is phenomenal. This is a great feature for businesses on multiple levels. It can do a lot of very sophisticated things. Some of the more common things that mobile device management does is it will prevent employees from downloading files to a thumb drive. You can basically turn off the thumb drive so they can't load anything. It doesn't work. Another thing that works very well from a security perspective is, let's say I'm traveling. I happen to take a trip to Dallas, Texas. I'm going to dinner. I leave my computer bag on the back seat of the truck or the car, the rental, and someone smashes the window, grabs my computer and goes, and it's gone. Well, I just make one phone call to my IT department, let them know what happened. And with a mobile device management, they can turn the computer into what's called a brick. So it doesn't even turn on, doesn't function. The next time it actually turns on, they try to access it. It actually shuts everything down. They can erase everything off the hard drive and just remove it automatically. And they can prevent anybody from taking all that proprietary, the intellectual property information from a business, access for the bank, access to different, scenarios. Some people are still storing passwords on a Word document on their hard drive. Well, we can remove all that stuff should the computer be stolen. Just don't do that in general. Use a password manager, but you get the idea of what it can do. One of the other kind of non-security things that it can do that's really great, especially with the rise of remote, workers in the business world, is you can actually set up computers very, very easily when it comes time to do a device refresh or a new employee. Let's say you have an employee that lives in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, you can order the device, have it shipped directly to that individual, and then they turn it on, connect it to the Wi-Fi or to just regular, internet. And then the computer recognizes that it's already enrolled in Intune and it downloads. The email's already set up, Outlook's set up. It downloads all the Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those as well. And then all the security parameters for the business are automatically downloaded and installed. Just, it's a real convenience. So from an IT department, you don't have to, ship the device to the corporate headquarters, do everything and then ship it back. And a lot of our clients will actually have different versions of it. They'll have like office worker will have one version, and then they'll have like salesperson version 2, operations 3, C level employees version 4. And so then it just sets up and it goes, and it makes it really convenient. So take a look at a mobile device management, especially for what we call the internal threats. A lot of people, when it comes to security, they think of the outside world. They think of all the bad people, the sitting in the dungeons and the basements. of houses trying to gather information, but think of your internal people. Think of the people that may be a little disgruntled with the organization. What could they possibly do from a security perspective that's going to damage the bank and cause a problem? So what we tell people all the time, especially from an HR perspective, when you're letting somebody go, obviously you want it to be a surprise from a security perspective. And when you pull that person into the HR office to let them go, make sure you're on the same schedule with your IT department, and then that IT person blocks that person out immediately. So as the person is getting let go, they're being locked out of all systems at the bank, so they can't access anything whatsoever. We had a situation where with one of our clients, they were firing the the accounts receivable person. And as she was being fired, she basically said, "Hey, I got some documents, or I have a pen at my desk that I need to go get." So she went back to her desk, hit a couple keystrokes, and deleted $100,000 of accounts receivable for this particular client. So internal and external, you make sure you're checking for, and that's where it comes your security awareness training for your whole organization. Make sure you're doing regularly training. That might be different for different banks. Some banks might hold one every 2 months. Some banks might do it quarterly or 2 times a year. Whatever that means to you, just make sure you do the training, and maybe you do a test to see if your employees can fall for a phishing campaign. Do a really good phishing campaign where they actually make it look like it's coming from an HR department, a CFO, where the body of the email says, "Hey, we're verifying all the information from our payroll department. Please click here to verify the information is correct." So just make sure you do some of those things and do some security training. Next, I wanted to get into some best practices from a couple different fronts. First one is download best practices. As part of your security training, you should be telling the entire organization and the bank, do not download attachments. Do not click any links inside of emails. Do not click anything on an email that comes through, and look for that secured website, the little icon in the website address, the little secured feature. Those are absolutely critical of what to do. From a social media perspective, keep everything private. In today's day and age, everyone likes to be in the public and do your social media posts, but if it's relating to business, keep that private. Don't share work environment on public areas, and especially on the business social media, be very careful of what you do on the contact information section specifically. They'll start spoofing that, and they'll start using that against you. And then the last one is just Google yourself. See what the hackers and what the bad guys can see about you, and then take preventative measures to do it. From a cloud storage perspective, some of this is from an internal hacking and security perspective. Set the permissions for sharing. Make sure you have it blocked to where if you have new hire training, only people from HR can get to it, and you have a set expiration on the link for that new hire. Maybe you have the new hire training is only set for 2 weeks or a week or a few days. Just use those type of situations inside of the systems to make sure that you are setting it up to success and you're not having security breaches internally or externally. So we kind of scared you a little bit of how they're getting in, what are some of their techniques, but how do you prioritize your security features? Where do you spend the money and time to do things? I apologize for this screen being a little bit blurry, I just noticed, but you can kind of get the overall concept here of you just create a checklist. This is just a graph, and again, we can share this with you and give you some examples on the best ways to do it, but you're just going to do a risk registry. Where are our problems? Where do we perceive to be our problems? Maybe you did a security audit with a third-party company and they came back with a bunch of security holes, or maybe just a couple security holes. Where in the priority list does it fall? Is it a moderate? Is it high? Is it detrimental to the business? And then that can very easily kind of point you in the right direction based on the overall risk and the money available to spend on what's going on from a priority perspective inside the bank and in the financial institutions. And then from a planning perspective, the days of will we get attacked are gone. It's really a matter of when are we going to be attacked? Are we getting attacked? Your firewall can give you reports on the different penetrations that are trying to get through your firewall. If you want an idea of what's going on inside your financial institution, have your IT department pull that report and use it in your meetings. Change just the overall mindset. Create an incident response plan. I'm sure a lot of you do, with your regulations and everything that you have to go through. Usually the financial institutions are very much on top of a response plan, but make sure it's updated. If somebody has left the organization, did you update that incident response plan, key contacts, et cetera, et cetera? Just make sure it's up to date and have the relationships, maybe walk through a breach, maybe you go through a test run of what your plan is and just make sure that everything's on the up and up. A couple ideas about your response team. Identify responsible parties and their roles clearly defined. Who needs to be notified internally? Who needs to be notified externally? Who's handling that communication internally, externally? The last thing you want to do is have misinformation floating around, especially inside the organization, of what happened. Maybe you had a breach, but maybe you're able to keep it to one device. And so they weren't able to actually do much damage, but that is a response that has to be notified and kind of handled properly. And then who oversees the overall technical operation? Do you have an internal IT manager, a VP of technology? Is it a managed service provider like Executech? Who's managing that? And then as you can see on the right, as part of this incident response team, kind of your overall plan, people have a book, they have a plan, they have a binder, and there's multiple binders. I've heard from many of the clients that have one where whoever's the lead person on the incident response team, that binder goes with them pretty much everywhere. They have a copy of it at their house. Maybe they got a copy in the car, one at the office. Little overkill might be, but if something happens in the middle of the night or at 6 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever that time frame is, you need to be able to execute your plan effectively, immediately, and make sure you're hitting those, those criterias on what's going on. So on the right are some key contacts that you would consider having in there or need to have in there: legal counsel, your cyber insurance contact, forensic investigators, the FBI, other law enforcement. We have the FBI. I jokingly say we have them on speed dial. We actually know them quite well. So we can get them involved rapidly should something happen to one of our clients. Is there a public relations situation that needs to take place? What's your service providers, your business partners, impacted customers? What reporting needs to take place? A compliant person needs to know what's happening so they can report it. You have certain timelines. You need to report situations from a financial institution perspective. So just to make sure that everybody is on board, everybody knows what's happening, everybody knows their role within the organization. And then the last slide here is an incident response plan brochure or procedure, just to give you some ideas. Again, you should have one. If you don't, you can Google it. Happy to provide some samples for you if you'd like. Identify the incident, alert the people, contain. Part of your security training for your employees. Do they know to isolate the issue? If their device is encrypted and they get a window that pops up, congratulations, you have malware. Do they know what to do? Do they know to unplug it from the internet? Disconnect the Wi-Fi device? Do they know that, right? Preserve the evidence because you're going to have to do a postmortem report on it. Communication internally, externally, analyze what's going on, include the cause, what's the deficiency, how can we do a better job, eradicate it, of course, and then recover, and then a post-incident review, make sure your policies are up to date on what's going on, make sure you have a debriefing of what's happening, And then the last thing I'll mention, and this kind of goes to maybe the bank managers, the financial institutions, CEOs, CTOs, CFOs, is they don't need to know all the details of IT and security, but they need to educate themselves on what's going on and some of the key things that's happening in a security IT situation. So when they sit into these meetings, they can take action. When things happen, when things know, or when people know that something might happen and they want to do things, they can be educated and they're part of the decision-making process when it comes to the incident response plan. And then the last slide here is just some contact information for you. Obviously, Executech. And again, my name's Lee, Director of Sales. My email address and my phone number is there. If I can help you in any way, feel free to reach out from some tips, best practices. Even if you have a full-fledged IT department, but you'd like some ideas, or maybe we can sit down with you and kind of brainstorm and do a security audit for you. Whatever we can do to help you, be more than willing to assist you on what's happening. Again, I thank everybody for being on the webinar today to learn about these best practices. I'll look real quickly to see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions that came through, but feel free again to take down my information. And if you think of something tonight or tomorrow, or you're at your next security meeting and you think of something that kind of resonated on the slide deck, feel free to reach out to me and I can get it to you. So I appreciate all your time and your effort today, and look forward to talking to you and getting to know everybody a little bit better. Enjoy the rest of your day.